Hi everyone, I'm Yvonne from IvonnePlusOne, and today we are going to be talking about a spooky forest, a forest in Transylvania, the home of Dracula. But this forest has nothing to do with Dracula and a lot to do with weird stuff, from UFO sightings to people who disappear never to be found. In fact, some people call this the Bermuda Triangle of Romania. A long time ago, there was a man who lived near this forest. You know, the forest that everybody talk about, the one with the strange tales of whispers at night, the weird lights, and the twisted trees. This man didn't believe in any of these stories. This man was a shepherd, and he thought that the grass in the forest was as good as any other. So that day, he went to graze his sheep in that forest. Well, there were 200 of those ships. And soon he realized maybe these rumors were right because weird things started happening. The more he went in, the more the forest was silent. There was no leaf rustling, there was no bird chirping, just an eerie stillness. Something felt kind of odd. Then, as he kept walking, everything became dark. He started seeing shadows in between these twisted trees because these were no normal trees. These trees grew in very twisted ways. Some of them spiral clockwise, some of them bend horizontally, or they form like a little hook before they keep growing up. They feel like they are reaching towards you, like almost as if they're trying to grab you. So now he's in the dark. There's this eerie silence, and his ships can feel it. They are restless too. And then, just like that, the 200 ships and the human, aka the shepherd, they just vanish. They disappear. The town people, it took them a little while to realize, where is this shepherd? He hasn't come back. But eventually, they started looking for him. They couldn't find anything. I mean, there was no sound of the sheep. There was no broken branches. There was no footprints. In fact, there was not even sign of a struggle. It was almost as if the forest just opened up and swallowed them all, and they were never found. And as the legend goes, this forest is actually named after him, Hoyabashu Forest. But that's not the only story about this forest. There's the story about a little girl. She was somewhere around 5 years old. Somehow she went wandering into this forest. Some people think that maybe she was just playing, or maybe she was curious about the forest, or perhaps the forest kind of calling to her. She might have seen the lights like dancing in between the trees, or hear her name whispered through the woods. Whatever the reason, she went in and she never came out. Her parents started looking for her, and then the whole village started looking for her. But just like the shepherd, there was no sign of hers. There was not even a piece of clothing or footprints or toys. There was nothing. The days went by, and days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. And before anyone realized, it has been 5 years. And this girl, well, she's still missing. And then, just like that, she just walked out of the forest. And she was wearing the exact same clothes of that day when she went missing. There was no dirt on her, there was no sign of wear and tear, there was nothing. In fact, she hasn't even aged a single day. She looked exactly the same. Her face, her hair, her appearance, everything looked the same. Everybody was freaking out, and they started asking, what happened? Where were you been? What happened to you? And the girl was all confused. She didn't understand. She just went into the woods and just came out. And they explained to her, it has been 5 years since we've seen her. This girl couldn't remember anything at all. She couldn't understand because for her, it was just a couple minutes. Now, beyond the legends of all the spooky things happening in this forest and the people disappearance, there's people who actually seen lights in the skies that many believe that they're UFOs. Specifically, August 18, 1968. That was a beautiful day when Emile Barnea, who was a military technician, he went hiking along his girlfriend and two friends. At one point, they reached the circle, which is an area in the forest where nothing grows. No matter what, it's completely bare. So they reached this area and they decided to have a picnic. Emil, he just went to gather some wood at the forest, and then he heard his girlfriend screaming for him, Emil, come over here, Emil. So he rushed towards his friends and his girlfriends, and they were all looking at the sky. So of course, he looked up, and that's when he saw it. In the sky, there was a something round and circular and metallic floating above them. It was slowly moving up, and he just grabbed his camera and started snapping a couple pictures, trying to figure out what it was. And just like that, that thing took off and left. So they started saying, hey, did you see that? What do you think it is? So they thought it was a UFO, and they went home. He developed the pictures, and there it was, that circle metallic thing floating in the air. So of course, he started talking about his stories, and the news heard about it, and they start publishing pictures, and it was all over the news. One thing that they noticed though is that this image was very similar to a UFOs that was seen in 1965 in Santa Ana, California. So they're not exactly the same, but they are very similar. The news heard about the stories, and they start publishing the story everywhere. But you have to remember, this was 1968, and he lived in Romania. The communist government, well, they were not thrilled about this. They were actually kind of mad, and they thought that anybody that believed in the supernatural or paranormal, they were kind of cuckoo. So Emil, he was accused of being crazy, basically. And some believe that maybe what they saw was a weather balloon, even though there was no weather balloon scheduled to be released that day. Some of them thought maybe he was just drunk, or he just made the whole thing up. I don't think that's true, because Emil lost everything. He was fired from his job, and the sad part is that years later, this photo was analyzed by experts, and they confirmed that this picture was real. There was no sign of being altered in any way, and in fact, ufologists classify this picture as one of the clearest photos of a UFO ever taken in Romania, and without a doubt, one of the best images of its kind in the entire world. Like I say, many people kept talking about this forest and all the things that happened, from the light seen in between the trees, from the light seen in the sky, the whispers and voices. And a man named Alexandru Sif, he heard all of them, and he was as interested as anyone else. During the 1950s and the 1960s, he decided he wanted to learn more about this forest because he was a biologist. And specifically, he wanted to learn more about the magnetic anomalies and the reason why the trees grew the way they grew. He gathered his things that day, and he took up. The goal was to reach the circle, where nothing grows but is surrounded by all these weird looking trees. As he got closer to the circle, he started thinking some things, like he encountered 8 trees growing from a single root. Then he saw trees that had burn marks, even though there was no sign of fire anywhere around. Then he saw trees that have a bunch of scabs. Then he saw the twisted trees. Some of them spiral clockwise. Some of them grow at the bottom and then up. And some of them are completely horizontal. Like they grow up a little bit and then horizontal, which is very illogical to me, because usually trees try to search for the sunlight, which is up. So there's no way why a tree should curve that way. But anyhow, he kept walking, and things started to get even more bizarre, because that's when he started hearing the sound. The sound that he described as teeth shattering, something that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. So now he's more vigilant, and he keeps walking. And from the corner of his eyes, he starts seeing shadows. Shadows that he referred as a man. But every time he tried to turn around to kind of capture a better look of this shadow, The shadow is gone. As he continued walking, now he's feeling that somebody is following him and he keeps seeing these shadow figures all around him. So he grabbed his camera and he started snapping pictures, trying to see if he could capture one of these shadow people in the pictures. Eventually, he did whatever he had to do and he went home and he developed the pictures. However, he did not find any shadow people at all. But in one of the pictures, there was something that he didn't see when he was there. There was a light in the sky that he most definitely did not see when he was there. Something that he would not have missed if he had seen it in real life. However, it was in the picture. So now this man is obsessed. Now he wants to know more about this forest, and he actually dedicated the rest of his life to study this forest. He captured many inexplicable lights in the skies, and he witnessed many shadow people. And in fact, he describes seeing what he said was like a man and a woman. They, when they realized he was looking at them, they just disappear. He continued his research until 1993 when he died. A couple years before he died, he started working with Adrian Patru, who is the president of the Romanian Parapsychology Society. When Steve died, Patru continued their research. In fact, he said there's two categories of phenomena happening in this forest. One is either the flying or stationary aerial structures. Most of the times, these things are not seen by naked eye, meaning they only see it through the camera or through the pictures, especially the lights. Or what he called the bioform, which is what I feel like are the shadow people. They could be either plants, animals, or people who are not really real, or they are distorted, but yet they can see them in the forest. After studying the forest for so many freaking years, he said, we have enough results to tell you what is not, or what the forest is not. It is not something we can possibly hope to understand in this age. Many people have gone to this forest themselves and they have experienced many strange and inexplicable and dark things themselves. Like, they have seen floating lights like dancing in between the trees, or like sometimes herbs that being captured through the camera or to the pictures, or they're just seeing with the naked eye. And sometimes they have a thermal camera and they point it towards these lights, and there's actually no person holding these lights, but the light itself does not produce any heat at all. Some people, they just hear like whispers all around them, or screams, or something calling their names. Just imagine this forest that is usually pretty dark at night, and somebody go calling your name, just enough for you to not sleep the whole night. Then in the trees, people have feel like the trees actually are talking to them, or they see faces in the trees or around the trees, faces of a loved one, of somebody that they knew that they are now dead and gone. But people say that this forest is inexplicably dark. Some people have seen glowing eyes around the trees too. They also feel like they're always being followed, like there's something looking at them that they cannot see, but they feel like they're being followed. And in fact, one person said, all of us felt like we were being watched. The darkness was so stifling. We had 3 phone flashes on, but there was always darkness 5 feet ahead of us. So they can only see 5 feet ahead of them. And in fact, they say if you turn around, it was like pitch black. It was like looking into the void. There was nothing but darkness. And then you hear all the noises, and maybe you see the lights, and maybe you hear somebody whispering your name. I can see how anybody will freak out. And there's the people who start having physical symptoms like nausea and vomiting and headaches, and they feel like they're being touched and pushed. And there's people who have developed like an increased level of anxiety. This forest will go very dark to the point where it's just kind of like sensory deprivation, where you don't see anything and all the sounds are amplified, which lead me to some people feel these forests amplify your emotions, meaning that if you are happy, it will make you happier. But if you're sad, it will make you more down or depressed. So if you're depressed, please don't go there. But if you have anxiety or fear, it might make it even worse. There's others that believe that the manifestations that you might see in this forest depend on your personal belief. If you believe in ghosts, you might see spooky ghosts. If you believe in UFOs, you might see one of them. But if you are one of those who don't believe in any of that, you might see nothing at all. Now, some people return with stories of time bending, meaning hours felt like minutes and days might have felt like hours. And then eventually they realize when they see like the phone and all that, oh my God, I've been here for 10 hours. It just felt like I just got here. However, there's other ones that simply never return. And in fact, it is said that about 1,000 people have gone missing in this forest, never to be seen ever again. Like nothing, not even the bones, not even anything at all. Which leads to some theories. Like some people feel like these people were abducted by UFOs, and some people believe they walked to another dimension. Which leads us to the circle, or the round meadow, or the dead zone. So many people call it different ways, but this is the part of the forest where nothing grows. And they actually have tested the dirt to see why, and the dirt from that place to where the trees are is exactly the same. And in fact, at one time they even tried to plant trees and nothing grew. Well, people think that this circle or this meadow or this dead zone is actually the landing site for UFOs, and therefore that's why nothing grows in there. Or it's a portal for another dimension, or maybe both. And in fact, some people believe that they actually gone through another dimension, and they will remember landscapes from another world, or seeing strange entities and talking to them, just to return and realize they've been missing for hours. Well, this forest has been so known that it's actually been featured in TV shows like Expedition X and Destination Truth. And in fact, one of the most compelling and spooky videos was captured on the episode of Destination Truth. And in here, they took a long time to be able to reach the circle, right? So they were walking all afternoon, all night. I think by the time they reached, it was somewhere around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. When they got there, they were taking turns. They would sit in the middle of the circle, and they go like, oh, I'm here, can you tell me you're here, can you show yourself, or whatever they're doing, no? And it was Ivan's turn, so he was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the circle while everybody else was a little far away trying to see what he captures. And sadly, it was the first time that he did a spooky episode with them too, so poor little guy. But anyhow, he was sitting for about 20 minutes when he started hearing female voices coming from the forest. And he's telling everybody else, hey, I hear voices. And then, without a warning, something yanked him off the ground and dragged him across the floor, and everybody was freaking out. It took like a split second. So now the rest of the crew is trying to go to where he is to try to figure out what happened. Then even it's kind of, he lost consciousness for a few seconds, and then he's coming back and he's all confused and he is not feeling that well. And then he complains, hey, my arm is itching. And then when he lifts his jacket and his long sleeve, he had scratch all over his arms. And then there's stories in Reddit, which I don't know if they're true or not, but some of them are fascinating. Three guys, they went hiking and they were camping actually to this forest. When it was late at night, somewhere around almost 8 p.m., they decided to set camp. And after they set everything up, one of them stayed in the camping ground while the two of them went to gather wood for the fire. And the one that stayed behind the ground, he said, once they left, I felt a chill up my spine as I sat there alone. I cannot explain it. It's like a primal human instinct that you feel whenever a predator was watching you. Then, something screeched and started laughing from within the woods. It sounded like a human and a creature mixed together. By now, he's just completely freaking out. And eventually, the other two guys come back from the woods, and he asked, "Did you guys heard that freaking screech and laugh?" And they're, "No, we didn't hear anything." And they come with the wood, and one of the guys, James, he said, "Look, I found this cross with the pile of wood." "What do you mean with the pile of wood?" And he's like, "There was a pile of wood and I grabbed it and there was this cross with it and I brought it with it." So now all of them are freaking out. Like, why would there be a pile of wood already chopped for you? And why is there a cross? And why did I hear this noise? And they're all freaking out in the forest. So now they're not sleeping. And at one point they run out of wood. So James goes back into the woods to gather more. Now, when he come back, he started acting a little strange. Like he was putting the woods one by one into the floor. So the other two was like, "I don't think that's James. Like James will just drop the wood in the floor. I don't think that's him." So in their mind, somebody has either killed or possessed or done something to James, but that James is not their James. So now they are conspiring. How do we get rid of this guy? Eventually morning came and they walk into the car, and at one point they kind of like distract James, saying like, "Hey, we forgot that thing, can you go get it?" And then they take off and leave him behind. And then he concludes by saying, "Oh, he didn't have any family or friends, so nobody is missing him," which that's the part of the story that makes me believe this is not true, because if that really happened, you probably go to the police and explain what happened and they can go get him and figure out what is wrong with James. But he ends up saying, "Sometimes I wonder what is doing there," meaning whoever is possessing James, "if he still had his body, twitching and smiling as he wanders aimlessly into the dark. I wonder if it remembers our faces too." And then there's the story of a grandma, a Romanian grandma. In this grandma, she was walking along her granddaughter. The granddaughter see the forest, and at the entrance of the forest, there was a little girl saying, "Hi, can you come over here? Hi." And the girl was like, "Oh my God, I want to go there." But grandma just grabbed her hand and like snatched her close to her, and she took off into the house. And the little girl was, "What's wrong, grandma?" And she goes to explain, when she was a little girl, she had a sister, and her mom always told them never to go to the forest by themselves. But that day, her sister woke up and she was acting a little strange, and she was like, "Let's go into the forest." Her sister took off. So she started following her. And as she got into the woods, everything started getting dark, everything started getting silent, and she got lost. She couldn't find her sister anymore. But she kept going. Eventually, she found the circle. And there was her sister with her white dress smiling. But she was holding the hand of a tall man. He did not look like a regular man. In fact, she didn't believe he was a man, but it was wearing a suit like a man. And he was holding a hand wash that was reflecting the sun. And then all she remembered is waking up the next day in the morning. Once she woke up, she said, "The woods remained silent, and yet I felt that I was not alone. My sister never came home, so that is why you must never go into the woods." Anyhow, thank you for being my plus one. I really hope you like this story, and I hope to see you next time. If you have any spooky ghost stories that you experience yourself and you want to share with me and the world, send it at IvonnePlusOne@gmail.com. I really appreciate you staying with me. Thank you so much. Bye. And don't forget to see whatever video is somewhere around here. Thank you. Bye.